Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama with me, Frank Rausan Pereira on Rajya Sabha Television. Over the next half an hour, we'll bring you a roundup of all the significant events to have happened around the world this week. But first, a look at the headlines. Emmanuel Macron and Narendra Modi hold bilateral talks in New Delhi. Visiting French president says his country is India's best partner in Europe. Both nations signed 14 agreements, including in the field of nuclear energy. Both Koreas to hold first summit-level talks since 2007 in April. South Korean delegation says North Korea is ready to speak to the US. President Trump credits progress in Korea talks to US sanctions. Germany's political deadlock ends after nearly 6 months of uncertainty. Angela Merkel set to form her fourth government after the opposition Social Democrats vote in favor of another grand coalition. Peaceful respite amid violence in Sri Lanka's tourist town. Kandy authorities say that no violent incident reported in over 24 hours. President Maithripala Sirisena had declared a state of emergency on Wednesday after violent clashes. The Shape of Water and 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. The big winners at this year's Oscars. Guillermo del Toro wins Best Director for The Shape of Water. Gary Oldman judged Best Actor and Frances McDormand named Best Actress. Well, our top focus on the program this week. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron wrote a new chapter in the history of cooperation between the two countries. On Saturday, both countries signed 14 agreements in the areas of Indo-Pacific cooperation, defense, logistics, energy, space and human resources development. Cooperation in renewable energy was another milestone that marked a convergence of ideas between the two countries. Here's more.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron had summit and delegation meetings on Saturday. Both sides signed 14 agreements in diverse fields that indicated a deepening of relations between the two countries. Cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region was key focus area. Both countries also released a joint vision plan that includes using each other's naval bases. The 14 agreements relate to the fields of internal and external security, railways, facilitation in migration and recognition of each other's academic certificates, urban development, space research for maritime security, renewable energy, solar and nuclear energy. In addition, France will also give a €100 billion loan for smart cities in India.
चाहे पर्यावरण हो, चाहे सामुद्रिक सुरक्षा या सामुद्रिक संसाधन या फ्रीडम ऑफ नेविगेशन एंड ओवरफ्लाइंग, इन सभी विषयों पर हम अपना सहयोग मजबूत करने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध है और इसलिए आज हम इंडियन ओशन क्षेत्र में अपने सहयोग के लिए एक जॉइंट स्ट्रेटेजिक विजन जारी कर रहे हैं.
Nous protège.
The trust that we share is protecting us because our interests are aligned. They are aligned, first of all, against terror. This is the structuring element of the new momentum we are giving to our strategic partnership against the current threat, against Islamist terrorism. And we very concretely decided to have some very operational and constant exchanges to do more together to fight radicalization on the internet and more also to fight against the financing of terrorism.
Home Minister Rajnath Singh, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj, Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, Railways Minister Piyush Goyal, Urban Development Minister Hardeep Singh Puri and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval were also present at the delegation-level talks and signing of agreements. Prime Minister Modi effusively described the Indo-French relationship as the one that extended from history into the future. French President Emmanuel Macron spoke about menace of radicalization and his country's willingness to fight it alongside India. Referring to the US and China, he suggested maintaining balance and avoiding trade wars in future.
आज हमने दो महत्वपूर्ण समझौते किए हैं। एक समझौता एक दूसरे की शिक्षा योग्यताओं को मान्यता देने का और दूसरा हमारी माइग्रेशन एंड मोबिलिटी पार्टनरशिप का है। ये दोनों समझौते हमारे देशवासियों के, हमारे युवाओं के बीच करीबी संबंधों का फ्रेमवर्क तैयार करेंगे।
Mais que nous devons encore renforcer, je pense, à l'agroalimentaire.
Particular in the agro-food business or for SMEs, and I will say more about it later on today. This is also one of the reasons why we are both very much attached to the balance of the international trade. We share the same willingness to prevent any trade war and to protect the existing balances. Of course, we will defend our interests within the international fora and in accordance with the rules of international trade and prevent any negative impact on our economies.
The agreement signed by two countries show growing confidence in each other as well as maintaining people-to-people ties. Of special importance to India in this regard are the facilitation of migration from India to France, recognition of certificates of academic institution of each other's country, facilities of logistics and defense. The French president is on 4 days visit to India. He was accorded a ceremonial welcome in Rashtrapati Bhavan on Saturday, while he also paid visit to Rajghat to pay tributes to Mahatma Gandhi. On Sunday, he'll jointly inaugurate the founding conference of International Solar Alliance in New Delhi. On Monday, he'll visit Varanasi with Prime Minister Modi, where he'll inaugurate the solar power station in Mirzapur and take a boat ride in Ganga with Prime Minister Modi.
Most of the agreements were signed by the ministers, and this shows the seriousness of understanding between the two countries. France wants that India should make it as its destination, and India has a great chance to reciprocate it. Akhilesh Suman for Rajya Sabha Television with camera person Junaid in Delhi.
Well, Akhilesh Suman, a foreign affairs editor, joins us for a chat now for more on this. Well, a new chapter in the bilateral relationship between India and France. What were the big announcements thus far, Akhilesh?
Yeah, Frank, I also don't remember in the recent past such a good agreement has been signed. And this is one of the milestones that has been created in the meeting, summit level meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Emmanuel Macron. One of the most important agreement you see that logistical arrangement agreement. This is one of the most important because you know that Indo-Pacific and the whole Pacific region is becoming the theater of competition among various powers of the world, and you know that there is a hegemonistic tendency also. You know it very well that China is trying to expand its influence all over, and in that situation, India and France has come together to sign the logistical agreement that will facilitate Indian naval ships to go and stay and also make exercises, and also in the case of disaster situation, both countries can utilize each other's naval bases. So this is one of the most important thing because France has the biggest presence in the Indian Ocean, and it has the biggest depository of real estate in this whole region. So this is one of the most important. Another thing that Prime Minister also hinted towards that certificate recognition, because this is France, many of the Indian students are studying and trying to study the Indian French language, and they are also studying in France. But when they come back, they don't get recognized of the certificate. And the same way, if Indian students go to France, they are not recognized. So this is one of the major things that both will recognize each other's degree. And then the third is migration, that India has a big human resource, and we have the opportunity to send our skilled people for employment and also contributing in the other countries. So I think this agreement is also very important, Frank.
All right, Akhilesh Suman, we'll have to leave to that. Thank you so much for joining us there with those details. Okay, we're going to throw open a discussion in our studio as well and, talk about the visiting French president's visit to India. I have with me in the studio right now Gulshan Sachdeva, Professor, Center for European Studies, and Anil Trigunayat, former ambassador as well. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on the program. Ambassador, I'd like to begin with you, of course. What do you think are the key takeaways of this visit thus far, the highlights for you, and how do you think the visit has gone thus far?
You see that France has been one of the most important partners for India. This is the 20th years of our strategic partnership that we are celebrating now. And France was probably the first country with which we had this strategic partnership. France has stood by us and supported us in all the regimes, including the United Nations Security Council, which was also reflected in the joint strategic. There are a few verticals of cooperation. One is defense, the other is security, third is space, fourth is nuclear, counterterrorism. And in all these areas, you will find that in the joint vision document that has been signed by the two Prime Minister and President Macron, all these are very detailed manner they have been done. But as your correspondent was saying, it is true that the logistical support agreement, in my view, in the defense sector, apart from what Mirage, Scorpion or the Rafale deals are concerned, the most important thing is that this will provide us a mutual possibility of cooperation and availing of these bases which the French have in Pacific or in the Indian Ocean. And there is a separate vision for the Indian Ocean cooperation which has been also charted out this time. And therefore, I feel that that provides us a real edge. And as you know, that whether it was Seychelles, whether it was in Oman recent times, this is what the Indian government has been trying to work out, these kind of collaborative arrangements which provide us that kind of an edge.
Indeed. You know, Professor, as far as bilateral ties between India and France, you know, what is the potential there? What potential do you see?
Well, there is a huge potential, and particularly if one has to see this particular visit, I think there are three dimensions. One is one has to see what is happening inside Europe, what is happening inside India, and what is happening bilaterally between India and France. As Ambassador has rightly mentioned, I mean, today we have more than 30 strategic partnerships. But the first ever strategic partnership was signed was with France. Since then, there has been a huge institutional arrangement between these two countries in defense, in nuclear, and all the areas which have been mentioned. And now, you know, normally when any European leader comes to India, you know, the focus is always on trade and economics, which is, you know, natural because they are the major trading partners. But France is one country from where you can find this, you know, real strategic understanding, and it's a trusted kind of partnership. In fact, if one has to keep, you know, the top 1 or 2, 3 major strategic partnership, definitely France would qualify for that. So now when, you know, as a result of Brexit, as a result of domestic difficulties in Germany, and also many other things which are happening in Europe, now President Macron has emerged as a de facto European leader. I mean, if you see, I mean, the way he has outlined his plan for European integration, for the European crisis, so he is actually not just representing France per se, he is also kind of representing Europe and how Europe is going to become more important for India, not just only in trade and economics, but also in strategic areas. Sure. And France is also a country now after Brexit, which is the only nuclear power within the EU and also only country which has the, you know, permanent seat in the UNSC.
Indeed.
So France is in that sense is representing Europe and as a leader of European Union as well as France, and France is actually using that power to facilitate, of course, its own interests and also European interests.
You know, 14 agreements signed on Saturday, Ambassador. You know, what are the other areas of cooperation where you see tremendous potential going forward?
Well, I think that the one important area in which France can help us and has been helping us is the high-tech cooperation. They already have about 25 R&D facilities in India. More than 1,000 French companies are operating in India. And although their cumulative investment is not that high, but the very fact that they are there and that they are looking at the Indian market, I think that there is a great potential. Secondly, the one other thing that they had agreed was to double the trade. Now, currently it's only about $10 billion. So they want to make it $20 billion. Thirdly, they want to do the education. The French president, I saw his interview, he was mentioning he wants to double the number of students coming to France. So they want to make France as a main place and compete with the UK, with the US and other countries. And that's where, as Professor mentioned, that agreement for the recognition of the degrees and diplomas and certificates comes very handy. And third, another thing more important is the migration. You see, it's always very difficult to go through Europe, and there have always been a problem whenever we have India-EU discussions. So the France has been one country which has been supportive and open in this. And if you remember that when we started our visa arrival for various countries, 100 odd countries in the world, France was one of them. But France was one of the first countries which reacted very positively to this initiative of ours. So I believe that there are quite a lot of possibilities. Sure. As such, this is one of the most comprehensive strategic partnerships.
Okay. Most comprehensive strategic partnership is what you're calling it. You know, even the professor, mentioned in your opening remark, Professor, that, the partnership between India and France is extremely solid, extremely tight. Yet, how do we take it to the next level?
Well, next level, basically, I think, if you look, watch his interview before coming to India, he identified 3 areas. One was climate change. Second was collective security, and third, in fact, was people-to-people contact, particularly youth exchange. Now, there is a huge potential, as you can see, happening tomorrow, particularly the International Solar Alliance. And I think this is one issue on climate change in which there is a huge political support across party lines in France and also all across Europe. So this is one area where I think a lot of things are going to happen in the years to come. And particularly in the area of solar, now the cost of production has come down, and India and France has taken this initiative, and I think this is one area to watch.
Sure.
And I think there are many more things which are possible, but still I didn't really see that much happening during this visit, particularly on the education exchanges and youth exchanges. I mean, there are 1 or 2 agreements, I think, but much more scope is there in that particular area.
All right, with that, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us and sharing your expert views. Moving on now. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said it is important that a new government gets to work quickly after the longest period of coalition building in post-war Germany. She said she would work to secure jobs and prosperity and promised to provide a strong voice for Germany in the EU. The Chancellor is set to form her 4th government after the opposition Social Democrats voted in favour of another grand coalition on March 4th. More than 5 months after Germans went to the polls in the September 24th national election, Germany will be getting a new government. The final hurdle was cleared when the Social Democratic Party rank and file sanctioned the coalition deal that party leaders had negotiated with Angela Merkel's Conservatives.
Ich begrüße das Ergebnis.
I welcome the result of Social Democrat Party's member vote. I believe a very, very good foundation has been laid for joint work in government.
Und glaube, dass damit eine sehr, sehr
66% of party members who voted supported a continuation of the Grand Coalition, while 34% opposed it, a clearer margin than many in the party had expected. More than 450,000 SPD members had been called upon to cast their votes in a mail-in ballot. The outcome was announced at party headquarters in Berlin on Sunday morning.
It's not a question of a personal appraisal or sensitivity. Rather, I think it's just good for a country that this phase of uncertainty and insecurity is over, and that there are 3 parties prepared to take on the responsibility of governing. I'll carry out responsibilities to the letter of the Constitution and will put forward my proposal to the Parliament as to the election of the Chancellor. And I think it'll surprise no one to hear that my suggestion will be Angela Merkel.
Und das wird niemand überraschen, Frau Dr. Angela Merkel sein.
The coalition agreement can now be signed and the Bundestag will elect Merkel Chancellor of Germany for the 19th legislative period. That vote is set to take place on the 14th of March. It will be the 3rd grand coalition in Merkel's 13 years as German leader, but it only came about after efforts to form a coalition with the Greens and centre-right Free Democrats failed. Former SPD chairman Martin Schulz initially ruled out another grand coalition and was forced to resign after he flip-flopped on the issue. Social Democratic leaders were persuaded to conclude another deal after winning key concessions from Merkel and her Christian Democrats, as well as earning consent on ministerial posts from the CDU's Bavarian sister party, the Christian Social Union. The SPD will have control of Germany's powerful finance ministry, among other things.
Wir wollen jetzt
stark Gas geben.
We really want to put our foot down once all the logistics are behind us. We want to put the foot down, especially in the coming 2 years, not because we believe that the coalition is limited to that time period, but because we want to prove to people that we conduct good politics with substance in Europe and abroad.
Inhaltliche Politik machen in Europa und in der Außenpolitik.
The far-right populist Alternative for Germany mocked the SPD's decision, predicting that the Social Democrats' decline would continue when Germany holds its next national election. The other parties were more respectful but hardly any more positive. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television. In a crucial announcement from North Korea, leader Kim Jong-un has agreed to negotiate with the United States on abandoning his country's nuclear weapons. North Korea will also suspend nuclear tests while the dialogue with the US is underway. This was confirmed by South Korean officials who visited Pyongyang earlier this week. Here's a report.
A significant meeting between Kim Jong-un and senior officials from South Korea, the North Korean leader's first interaction with envoys from the South since he took over in 2011. Pictures and videos released of the meeting show a smiling and indulgent Kim Jong-un, who is said to have agreed to the first summit-level talks between both sides since 2007, which will be held in late April. The most significant development, though, was that the North Korean leader is reportedly willing to hold talks on denuclearization in exchange for security guarantees from the US. If true, the development marks a fresh milestone in the global quest to reduce tensions on the Korean peninsula.
North Korea made clear point of view for denuclearization of the Korean peninsula and said that there was no need to keep its nuclear program as long as there was no military threat against it, and the safety of its regime was secured.
Our Supreme Leader heard the intention of President Moon Jae-in to hold a summit from the South Korean special envoys, exchange views and made a satisfactory agreement. He has given important instruction to rapidly take practical steps for it.
Reactions to North Korea's latest olive branch have been mixed. US President Trump, for one, took credit for the improving ties between both the Koreas and claimed that Pyongyang's recent statements were due to strong US sanctions on the rogue state.
I think that they are sincere, but I think they're sincere also because the sanctions and what we're doing with respect to North Korea, including, the great help that we've been given from China, and they can do more, but I think they've done more than certainly they've ever done for our country before. So China has been a big help. I think that's been a factor. But the sanctions have been very, very strong and very biting, and we don't want that to happen. So I really believe they are sincere. I hope they're sincere. We're going to soon find out.
China, too, expressed positivity about the latest Korean talks, but Japan was more guarded. Government officials in Tokyo claimed that North Korea's intentions were unclear and careful analysis was needed.
Past discussions with North Korea have not resulted in its denuclearization, so our response should be based on lessons learned from that. Talks for the sake of talks are meaningless.
Analysts say North Korea's likely return to the talks table for the first time since 2008-09 talks collapsed could result in a lessening of China's leverage as a peace broker. While reasons for the sudden change of heart by Kim Jong-un remain unclear, few are of the opinion that the US and UN sanctions aside, credit must also be given to South Korea's President Moon Jae-in, who has always advocated peace talks with the North. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, moving on, now crowds were returning to Sri Lanka's Central Highlands region and tourist towns on Friday, which were mostly deserted after a state of emergency was declared. Sri Lanka's Kandy district had been rocked by communal clashes since March 4th, following attacks on members of the minority Muslim community by nationalist crowds from the Sinhalese majority. At least 2 people were killed. President Maithripala Sirisena decreed a state of emergency in Kandy on Wednesday, but crowds carried out more attacks targeting mosques and businesses belonging to Muslims overnight. Police said no violent incident took place in the last 24 hours, raising hopes that the situation is now under control. Kandy is a prime destination for foreign travellers, famous for the Buddhist temple of the Sacred Tooth relic, tea gardens and natural beauty. And finally, the 90th Academy Awards were held on March 4th in Los Angeles, and the big winners were The Shape of Water and 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. In a surprise for Indian cinema fans, icons Sridevi and Shashi Kapoor were among those remembered at the ceremony. Here's more from the Oscars.
Politically charged and revolutionary. Those are the words being associated with this year's Oscars.
Of the 9 Best Picture nominees, only 2 of them made more than $100 million.
From sexual abuse scandals to the fight for gender equality, to pledges of support for immigrants and minorities, Hollywood's stars, led by host Jimmy Kimmel, made sure the issues weren't brushed under the red carpet.
The Academy, as you're no doubt aware, took action last year to expel Harvey Weinstein from their ranks. There were a lot of great nominees, but Harvey deserved it the most. And, oh, that's nice. That's very sweet. So,
I don't want to get your hopes up, all right, but there's a guy, he got a lot of it, actually. They're making the checks as we speak.
He's in jail?
No, but he ain't gonna be hard to find.
The ceremony began with an Oscar for Sam Rockwell. He won Best Performance by an Actor in a Supporting Role for 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri.
Thanks. Okay. Run that clock, Jimmy. I want to get that ski jet or whatever that was.
The film was nominated for 7 awards and also won Frances McDormand her 2nd Oscar for Best Actress.
You're so pretty. You ain't trying to make me believe in reincarnation or something, are you? Because you're pretty, but you ain't her. She got killed. Now she's dead forever. I do thank you for coming now.
We are looking at the collapse of Western Europe in the next few days.
We're facing certain defeat and imminent invasion.
The Best Actor award went to Gary Oldman for his portrayal of Winston Churchill in Darkest Hour.
I would just like to salute Sir Winston Churchill, who has been marvellous.
The Shape of Water by Alex.
But the biggest winner for the night was a creature feature, The Shape of Water.
And the Oscar goes to Guillermo del Toro.
It won 4 of the 17 nominations, including Best Picture and Best Director.
Thank you.
And there was a special moment for Indian movie fans when the memoriam section featured Bollywood icons Sridevi and Shashi Kapoor, among other stars who've passed away. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, that's it on this edition of World Panorama, but I'll be back same time next week. Until then, sayonara.